The following podcast may contain adult language and an abundance of salt. So get ready, nerds. Are we locked down, Jude?
Lock it down.
Sound?
Speed.
Camera?
Rolling.
Action. Welcome and thank you for listening to another episode of the Salty Nerd Podcast. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about movies that are about making movies. Isn't that right, Kadish?
That is correct.
Right on. And what movies are we going to be talking about today?
We're going to be talking about 3 movies that were painstakingly chosen to piss you guys off. Just so you know. No,
Nailed it.
Basically, these are movies that I
Gives
feel...
Kadish a boner.
Yeah.
Well, something needs to.
Quit interrupting. Damn.
That's fair. That's fair.
I had
Nice.
like a good quip going,
Just stomped.
and he just fucked me up right there. I was like, dude, I can't top that. That was good stuff.
Wow. That was
Dang.
quick, too. Geez.
I'm gonna go home.
Like he had that.
See you guys later.
Your job here is done.
It's over.
All right. Anyway, what?
Yeah, but I wanted, since we're a pop culture podcast and we talk about movies like every week, I kind of wanted to do a week where we were talking about, the craft of making movies.
Mhm.
And so what better way to do that than to watch movies about the craft of making movies? And so I chose 3 films that I feel best represent the filmmaking process that we could talk about. And of course, I knew you guys were going to hate them, but regardless of that, like these 3 movies just nail what it's like to actually make a movie. And we often wonder, like, how could a movie be so bad, or how could a movie, make this choice or whatever? And you see how that happens through one of these 3 movies. And so I really wanted to kind of showcase that and maybe even educate you guys a little bit on the art of filmmaking.
I did feel educated this week. I was like, wow, God, never want to work in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Kadish takes the salty crew to school.
Yeah. It also makes me really want to argue with Kadish more. Like, oh, is this what he's used to? Okay, I can amp it up a little bit.
You have no idea what I'm used to.
I don't.
Like when I was in Hollywood and doing stuff like this, like the movies that you saw were tame in comparison.
God.
Like, I was in writers' rooms where people were almost like fist fighting
That's crazy.
when they were, debating about stuff. So, yeah,
Oh,
that
man.
doesn't sound fun to me at all.
Have we said
it's not fun. Filmmaking is not a fun process. In fact, it's stressful. It is miserable. And I'm always amazed when a movie can turn out good, because there are so many things working against every single production that it's a wonder anything ever gets made that's worth watching.
So what 3 movies are we talking about today, buddy?
All right, so the first movie we're going to be talking about is a film called is a film called And God Spoke.
Mm-hmm.
And technically the full title is The Making of And God Spoke. And it's a mockumentary that is about the making of a biblical epic. And this movie has a very special place in my heart because it kind of came out around the time that I was getting ready to go into film school. And it premiered on on the Independent Film Channel, IFC, which used to be a big deal. I don't think anyone watches it anymore. But
it has some stuff on it every once in a while. It's good.
Yeah, but it had just premiered by the time I had gotten into film school. And this movie had gotten bought up by it and was playing on that channel. And so I'd kind of seen it, but also my local college video store had a copy of this. And so me and my film school friends would rent it and stay up late drinking and watching this and laughing about it. And but then, like, once I got into Hollywood and actually worked on a few movies, I came to have a whole new appreciation for this film, because like I told Jude when we were watching it, if you ever want to know what it's like to actually make a movie, watch this movie, because this movie, better than any other film out there, shows you what working on a real Hollywood picture is actually like.
I can't wait to talk about it. What's the next one on the list?
The next one on the list is called Living in Oblivion. And it is kind of like, it has bigger name actors in it than And God Spoke.
Yeah, I was a little shocked when this thing came on, and I'm like, wow, I recognize some of these people.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But Living in Oblivion kind of came out in the early to mid 90s, which was kind of riding this wave of independent cinema. Like you had like Tarantino and all these guys out there making these like indie movies. And so the indie scene was very kind of vibrant and active and stuff like that. And so this movie kind of came out, and it was an independent film, but it was an independent film about independent film. And so it was very meta. And like And God Spoke, if you ever want to know what it's like making a low budget indie film, this is the type of movie you would watch to get that real experience. So I felt like it was a good contrast with And God Spoke, which is more Hollywood, whereas this one's more like the New York indie scene. And it has an amazing cast in it.
Yeah.
The first appearance of Peter Dinklage.
Was this his first appearance?
Yeah, this was his first movie. And then, you know, you just have like this amazing cast of, at the time, they were like really big in the indie scene, like Catherine Keener and Dermot Mulroney and I'm blanking on
Steve Buscemi.
Yeah, Steve Buscemi, thank you. So like, you know, the fact that they were in this movie kind of elevated it to a whole nother level, but it's a fascinating film, and I get a film boner every time I watch it.
It was my favorite out of the 3 this week. All right, so what's the third movie on today's list?
The final film is a more mainstream movie called Bowfinger, starring Steve Martin and Eddie Murphy. Thank you.
That dude that was
one
funny
guy that was famous back in the day. Yeah.
in the 80s.
Yeah. But you know, Bowfinger, even though it's a comedy, it is about making a movie. But the thing that strikes me about it the most is the character of Steve Martin, because in my experience in Hollywood, basically the best producers are habitual liars, and they will do by hook or by crook anything to get a movie made. But that character that Steve Martin plays reminds me so much of an old business partner that I used to have when I worked in Hollywood. And this was a guy, he was a chronic liar, a total BSer. You know, he would go into meetings pretending like he was a millionaire and browbeat actual millionaires into thinking that he was hot stuff. And, you know, he actually ruined a lot of my production deals when I was in the industry. But like, there's so many people in Hollywood like that Steve Martin character that I felt like it was important to highlight the behind the scenes personalities that go into the making of these movies, because every character in that film represents like what actual people who work in the industry act like. So I just thought it'd be a good way to kind of round out the whole movies about making movies thing.
Right on. All right, we're going to have fun today. So join us for the rest of the podcast to talk about these awesome movies. Before we get started, a real quick word from our sponsors. Welcome back. All right, guys, real quick, before we dive into these movies, if you would like to support this podcast, go to saltynerdclub.com. There you will find our Patreon page, and you can choose a myriad of different tiers and get some really cool stuff in return, exclusive podcasts, behind-the-scenes photos, communicate with the hosts of the podcast itself, and cool merch. All right, guys, the first movie on our list today is And God Spoke, the mockumentary about making movies. And who wants to do the synopsis? Jude, you ready to go?
I have it.
Okay, Jude, take it away.
So 1993, And God Spoke / the making of And God Spoke. It was rated R with a runtime of 1 hour and 22 minutes. It had a budget of $150,000. What do you think it made, Alex?
How much? 150,000? I don't know. Did it make any money? It's a very niche market, but I guess say 200,000.
Okay, Vader?
I have no idea.
I didn't even know this was a
Yeah.
mass market movie. Was it out in theaters, Matt?
I honestly don't know.
Tell him.
I think it might have been in one theater.
Tell him nothing.
It made $12,000.
It made $58,000.
Wow. Yikes. All right.
This is a spoof documentary about the making of the Bible, the motion picture, and everything goes wrong. The studio cancels their funding, and critics pan the movie, and then it ends up becoming a cult classic, making $42 million.
Okay, so for this movie, I could see why Kadish would like it. This is a very niche kind of a movie that I felt like I wasn't in on the joke a lot of the times. Like I'm watching it, I'm like, okay, it's kind of funny, but I bet you it would be really funny if I would work in that industry.
Yeah.
And so for me watching the movie, I'm like, it's good, it's okay. None of it's, I can't say it's bad. I can't say it's a bad movie. I just felt like I wasn't in on it. So it didn't have that same effect on me as it would somebody like Kadish.
Right.
I thought that you would actually like this movie just from the similarities to The Office.
It does have some similarities, not that you mention it. But I didn't really want to root for any of the characters in the movie.
Yeah, so for people who haven't seen this movie, basically it's a documentary about the making of a movie. And so like if you've ever seen an episode of The Office or any of like, like This Is Spinal Tap or something like that, it's done in that style where there's basically this behind the scenes documentary crew that's documenting the making of a biblical epic. And so you get a lot of kind of like, I feel like a lot of this movie's ad-libbed, but it's also all handheld, and it looks like, like an actual documentary, even though this is, a scripted performance based film.
Was it you that texted us and you were like, hey, make sure this is like a drunk with friends kind of movie or something like
I said, don't watch this alone or sober.
Yeah. Because it does have funny moments. Like the standout moment for me was when Moses was on top of the mountain and they were filming him with the 10 Commandments with the six-pack of Coke. Yeah, and I'm like, good. Okay, that's funny. It's got clever moments to it like that. And with the actress
we're going to get sued if we don't put the Coke in.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so the joke is they ran out of money, and in order to get financing to finish the film, they had to do product placement deals. And one of those product placements deals was with Coke.
But it's a biblical movie that takes place in the past.
It's sword and sandals. And so when Moses descends the mountain with the 10 Commandments, he's holding a 6-pack of Coke. and
that came from God.
The elixir from the gods.
I kept on going to Mel Brooks.
Yeah. Kind of felt like that, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like the director and the producer have a big blow up about, the Coke cans, and the director's like, we can't put this in the movie. Like, this is biblical times. They didn't have Coca-Cola. And the producer's like, well, if we don't put it in the movie, we don't have the money to finish the movie. And since they already paid us, they're going to sue us if we don't put it in the movie. And one of the great things about this film is it perfectly captures the producer-director relationship, because the producer is always the one who's like, we got to stick to the schedule. We have to be mindful of our budget. We have to,
he's the babysitter of the project.
Well, he's like, we got to make it profitable. We have to make this, a commercially successful movie. And the director's always like, oh, my integrity, my vision, that's like artistic.
That's me and Kish. 100%.
A little bit.
That is an accurate depiction of the two of you.
Very accurate. I'm always like, I'm not going to compromise my vision of the podcast. And Kadish is like, yeah, but we got to get those clicks, bro. So
he always try to put us in the middle. It's like, what do you guys think? And we're like,
Vader just bounces. Vader's like, all right, let me know when you guys are done fighting. And then I show up and like mediate you two.
For moments of this movie, I'm like, oh my God, I know what that feels like. That is an awful feeling. So yes, this movie is very clever, and I can totally see somebody that works in that industry would get all these jokes 100% and would crack up.
Are you going to get a little scruffy chin beard?
No, I'm going for the full thing.
I mean, you should just do the full, just Steven Spielberg thing.
Yeah?
Because that's what he's doing in this movie.
Okay.
That's what I thought anyway. He was trying to like have
is it a Spielberg thing?
Young Spielberg look.
Yeah, now that you mention it, it kind of does, huh?
Yeah.
It's nice. Good catch. What did you think about this movie? Literally chokes up.
I'm kind of in the same boat as you.
Okay.
I didn't feel like I could relate a whole lot to this movie. I kept on trying to compare it to Spinal Tap, which is like the thing that I compared it to most while watching it. I thought Spinal Tap was way funnier.
For sure.
Way better, Is that a word? Way better? No.
Yeah.
I better not go there. I'm going to get in trouble again. Way better. I did it.
Don't.
It's better.
Can't help himself.
I also kept flashing to Mel Brooks's History of Time. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
History of the Bible or whatever.
History of the World.
History of the World Part 1. They never named. Did they make Part 2? I don't know. But kind of, I can see the influence from that and from Spinal Tap, and I enjoyed this movie. It was fun. I didn't laugh out loud a whole lot. I kind of like the scene with the snake tattoo on Eve.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
That was pretty funny.
That's a good moment. She's
like, whoa. we can't do nothing with her now. You know?
Yeah, I auditioned for the part of the Virgin Mary. I didn't know there was going to be nudity.
Yeah.
She's got this giant snake tattoo all the way down her body. Like, goes from my neck down to my thigh.
Right.
Like, I didn't think it was a big deal. The freaking director's like, ah!
Yeah.
But that's literally like, that's the type of thing that happens, you
Yeah.
know, where like they cast a actress for like a different role than she auditioned for. And all of a sudden, like, she's not right for it for some reason. That's stuff that actually happens in an actual movie.
Yeah. Jude, what did you think about this movie?
So I watched it with Kadish while he was having his back in Hollywood boners over it. And honestly, I got through it and I was just like, the whole time I was watching it, I was like, this is boring. This is not funny. And then when it ended, I was like, retrospectively, I was like, okay, I get the joke.
Yeah.
And that's about it.
Yeah.
Like, I think talking about it is funnier than actually watching it.
Yeah, I agree. Because I was gonna say like most of the way through the movie, like I said, I'm like, okay, I get why this would be funny to some people, but it didn't catch me. And then at the very end, it kind of redeemed itself when it was like, it cut to a year later, and the movie's like this huge cult classic,
Right.
and there's like cosplayers with like Coke bottles and shit like that. I'm like, that's freaking funny, dude.
That's the kind of stuff we would do.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
100%.
that's hilarious because then automatically it like endeared itself to me from all the cult movies that I like that I know are terrible movies.
Yeah.
Like this
Same.
Yeah. Like we love terrible movies on this podcast and we talk about them with such enjoyment.
We
I'm
should
like,
have a t-shirt that says that.
we love terrible movies. But it just makes me laugh because I'm like, in the real world, in the world that this movie takes place in, that's what happened. Like they made this awful movie, but then people caught on to it and like attached themselves to it as a comedy, which it wasn't meant to be. But
Like The Room.
yeah, like The Room or give me some other ones. What other
I
terrible
saw-
movies do we love?
I saw a documentary on on one of these goofy little channels that are on late night, and it was about a theater. I don't remember if it was in LA or New York or where, but it was like they were famous for their midnight showings of really weird, goofy cult movies.
Okay.
Mhm.
Kadish probably knows what I'm talking about, but it was
Like the Alamo Drafthouse.
no, I don't think it was the Alamo Drafthouse, but it was about a movie that this very thing happened to, and it kind of like set the scene for the midnight showings going forward. And this was back in the 70s, I think, is when they were talking about this movie. But it was interesting. I'll have to look it up and figure it out.
Yeah, but we've watched movies like Creepazoids and,
Oh,
and
yeah.
Wolf Cop and
Thank
stuff
you.
like that.
Yeah, thank you. I couldn't remember that. Yeah.
Wolf Cop. I
love
gotta
Wolf
get that
Cop.
poster.
Wolf Cop.
I want that poster.
It's a good bad
in my
movie.
room.
I can't wait to talk about Wolf Cop too.
But there are scenes in this movie that are just, they hit so close to home for me because I've lived through these scenes. like there's a scene early on in the film where they're having their first production meeting. And the first assistant director, so for those of you who don't know what a first assistant director does, basically he's the guy who runs the show for the director. So the director will be on set and he'll be like, I want to do this. And the first assistant director is like, okay, camera, you go set up over here, call wardrobe, blah, blah, blah. Like he makes the stuff happen.
I know what scene you're talking about.
Yeah. So basically they're in their production meeting. They got the heads of all the different departments there. And the first assistant director starts doing what he's supposed to do, and he starts running the meeting. And the producer, Marvin Handelman, he starts going on the power trip, and he's like, no. I'm the producer. I'm the boss. I run the meeting. And everyone is looking at him like, okay, what do you want to do? And so like he starts going to each department head, and he's like, so are we good on locations? And the location guy's like, yeah,
we're good.
and he goes to wardrobe, and he's like, so do we have all the costumes we need? And wardrobe's just like, yeah, we're good. And so he's like, okay, good meeting. And then like the producer and director leave, and immediately
The meeting starts.
Yeah. Chaos takes over and everybody starts yelling over each other. And they're like,
the first AD, he's basically like, okay, now let's really get things going.
Let's get into
it was
this,
a good moment. I did like that. Like I said, a lot of clever moments that I think would have been funnier if I was you. But
Kadish was laughing out loud the whole time.
I bet because he
And
knows people.
I just kept looking at him like,
because he's lived these experiences.
I don't get it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like
I felt like Sarah Marshall when Pete played her the Dracula song, and I was like, I just don't get it. Please don't play it again.
That's another movie reference.
Yeah, but I mean, like every person who's ever worked on a movie has been in that meeting where the producer starts flexing his muscles and he has no business doing it. And so like that scene like really kind of rings true to me because I've seen that happen.
Yeah.
But then another scene that I just love every time I see it is the scene with the Teamsters. You know the one I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, when they're talking about safety, like, what are you doing over here, man? You got to it's not safe.
Get off my truck.
Get out of here. That was funny because
Well,
I know people like that. So
yeah,
that
me
is,
too.
yeah.
The thing about the Teamsters is that for those of you who don't know anything about film production, is that they're union gigs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So because of the union contracts with the studios, and this is one of the reasons why studio productions cost so much, like millions and millions of dollars, is that, you know, all you really need for the trucks to do is show up, unload the equipment, drive away, then come back at the end of the day, load the equipment, drive back to the warehouse or whatever. But because of the union contracts, the Teamsters literally have to be there with the trucks all day long. And so they're mandated by the union that they sit there earning $45 an hour, sitting on their little lawn chairs, reading books, eating food, watching movies on their phones, basically getting into trouble because they get so bored that they look for stuff to do.
Yeah.
And because they're not part of the production, they're part of the union, they don't give a crap. Like you could be Tom Cruise and the union guys would be like, hey, F you, man. Like, get off my truck. Because the only thing that they're responsible for is the truck.
Mhm.
And so when the producer in the movie is on the truck doing a business call, and the two union guys come up and they're like, oh, what are you doing? Get off the truck. And the guy's like, I'm the producer. I run this thing. I'm like, I don't care. Get off the truck. And like, they're just browbeating. Like that stuff happens all the time on a movie set because the Teamsters just don't care. They will mouth off to you. They will tell you to, get bent. And then they'll sit there and they'll earn, way above minimum wage, doing absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And that to me was just like hilarious.
It makes sense. It makes sense that you would think that was funny. There was there's another moment, a standout moment for me. I like like we talked about the lady with the snake tattoo. Like, I wasn't made for this part. I didn't know there was going to be nudity. The other one, I love the actors that they hire. Like the dude who played God is like a total stoner.
Oh yeah.
That dude cracked me up, dude. He's sitting there. He's like, yeah, he was talking about bands or something. Like, I'm really into like Zeppelin, like acid rock, right? I'm into acid rock. He's there in his like full God outfit with his stupid little like rose-colored glasses.
Yeah, and in the movie, he doesn't take the glasses off.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys doing, man?
It was moments like that that really made me chuckle.
And everybody hated Jesus.
Yes.
Yeah, because Jesus, the guy who playing Jesus is a method actor.
Yeah.
And there's a scene where he's like doing an interview with the camera and the guy keeps calling him to the set. And finally he gets so frustrated, he's like, Jesus Christ. And the guy playing Jesus is
like,
like,
what?
Like,
Yes, my son.
Because like method actors are really like that.
Well, yeah. What was it? Daniel Day-Lewis like would be referred to as Abraham Lincoln when he was shooting that movie.
Or like Eric Stoltz on Back to the Future,
Yeah.
where he insisted everyone call him Marty, and like nobody actually knew what his real name was who was working with him because he was like in character constantly.
Yeah.
Just but stuff like where they had 8 disciples instead of 12.
Yeah, and no one knew how many disciples there were.
They're making a Bible epic, and everybody's like, "Where's the Bible? Who has a Bible?" And they're like,
Well, they asked for a script, and then somebody gives them a Bible.
Jesus sitting there smoking a cigarette. Yeah, it was funny.
But the best part was like, so like the director's like, I don't feel like there are enough disciples. How many disciples are there? No one knows.
Yeah.
And then they go to this one guy. He's like, hey, you're Catholic, right? And he's like, yeah. He's like, how many disciples did Jesus have? He's like, I think 10. And they're like, you're Catholic, right? And he's like, yeah. He's like, okay, 10 disciples it is.
And then they just grab like a few more random people and throw some robes on them. They're like, you're a disciple now.
But it's funny because everyone making the movie is Jewish. So, like that's a typical Hollywood thing too, where everyone in the business is
Yeah.
I shouldn't say everyone, but like a lot of people in the business are Jewish. Yeah. So like they're making a movie about the New Testament. And they don't know anything about it. And the original script that they had written was like 2,000 pages.
No, I think that was referencing the Bible itself, right? Because they were like, our original script was like 4,000 pages. And I'm like, that's
I
how long
assumed that they were just talking about the actual Bible.
No, that was the script.
Yeah, that
Seriously?
was the script.
Yeah.
Oh. And kind of the running gag through the whole movie was they kept on
ripping pages out,
chunks out of it.
Which is another thing that happens on actual production. Like when you fall behind and you don't have the time or money to shoot a scene, you go through the script and you just like start ripping pages out.
Rise of Skywalker, anybody? Yeah, this is it had a lot of funny, clever moments. I feel like I would have attached myself to it a little bit more if I would have been in on a lot of these jokes. But talking about it with you guys is funny because we know this is what happens, and we have Kadish here to let us know. Like, no, because I thought this was more of like a caricature. I thought it was amped up a little bit when I was watching it. I'm like, oh, this is like an over exaggeration of what happens. And then Kadish is like, this is the most accurate depiction of a movie production ever. And I'm like, whoa, really? That's terrible.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Do you guys want to do final thoughts? Kadish, you have anything else you want to say?
Yeah, there are a couple of things. Like I just, the cameos in this movie are great. Like when we were watching it, Eve Plum, who plays Jan on the Brady Bunch, all of a sudden shows up. And we always joke that Alex is like,
he's Jan.
He's Jan Brady.
Alex still doesn't get that joke.
Marsha.
But Noah's wife in the movie was played by Eve Plum, aka Jan Brady. So that was kind of a funny thing. And you know, they talk about how like, you know, like, hey, do you ever get, you know, upset that people always refer to you as Jan? And she's just kind of like, yeah.
I got a kick out of Soupy Sales, always trying to crack the one-liners. Just like every time you ever see him on his shows that he's ever been on back in the 70s and stuff.
Was that the guy who was complaining about?
He was Moses.
Okay.
Yeah,
with the coke.
Soupy Sales, but then like you have like
Alex thought, who's Soupy Sales?
No, I knew Soupy was from this movie, but the one-liner thing, was he the one who was complaining about not having the Schwarzenegger one-liner, or was that a different movie?
No, that was Bowfinger.
That was Bowfinger. Okay, sorry about that. Never mind.
But you have Andy Dick and Lou Ferrigno as Cain and Abel.
Oh, I forgot Lou Ferrigno was in this movie. That's right.
And they show the murder of, you know, Abel, where Lou Ferrigno basically just beats the crap out of Andy Dick.
It's funny because he was like, he thought he was going to be the one who was going to murder somebody. He's like, I'm getting amped up. He's doing push-ups in the dirt.
Yeah.
And he's like kicking sand in his face. He's all getting amped up. And then somebody's like, no, you're the one who's getting killed. And his face just goes,
By the Hulk.
oh, no. That was a good moment.
But then like you see the actual fight scene in the dailies, and it's the most pathetic fight.
It looks like that famous fight scene from Star Trek with the freaking lizard
with
person.
The Gorn.
Yeah, the Gorn versus Kirk. Yeah, it looked like that.
But you know, like there's so many like great things. Like for instance, the scene where they're going to shoot the Ark, and
it doesn't fit.
And one of the things that you'll know if you've ever worked on a movie set is everyone who's involved in like the head of a department takes their job super seriously. And so like for instance, in this movie, they had the craft service guy, the guy who's in charge of delivering food to the set. And he's like, I want to make authentic to the time, like snacks for people.
Bible food.
Yeah, Bible food. And that's so accurate because like, you know, even the craft service person's like, I'm an artiste. I must have my vision, you know?
Yeah.
And everyone's like that. And so the guy who was in charge of building the Ark, who was, I think the set designer or prop master or someone like that, he basically did super amount of research. Like he found like aged wood from like the actual time period, and he built this huge Ark. And then when it came time to actually like bring it into the soundstage to shoot it, they had to have moved sound stages because they got their budget cut.
Yeah.
And so the Ark that he built was too big to fit into the new soundstage. And the guy's like, I built it to spec. This is your fault, not mine. And the filmmaker, like the director and the producer, just like, okay, yeah, it's our fault.
Yeah. I did like that. That was funny.
Yeah,
and
but stuff like that actually happens like on set. And it's just like that type of thing. Like I'm sitting there watching it and I'm having flashbacks to similar things that I experienced in my time making movies.
Yeah.
And it strikes me as so funny because the director, you know, like right before that scene where the Ark comes in, he's having pictures of himself taken and he's like doing poses by the camera. And he's like pointing, going like that. And like, I've done that.
Oh, Lord.
like there are pictures of me on my movie where I'm like behind the camera and I'm like pointing.
but you're not pointing at anything.
No, I'm not pointing at anything because like you want to look like you're directing something.
Yeah.
So the easiest way to direct something is just to point. And so I mean, like it's little things like that, but also like when the stuff goes wrong and you know you get your funding pulled and all that happens in this movie. You know, the scene where they're going to have like the big explosion and the fire and the explosive don't go off after all this buildup. Like everyone's like, okay, guys, we're going to get one shot at this, and the effects guy is like, it's going to be a huge explosion. You have to maintain like this safe distance and stuff like that. And then like when it actually happens, it's like a firecracker went off and
Yeah.
just like a bunch of smoke.
Yeah.
That was the burning bush scene, right?
Yes.
With Moses. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the burning bush. And so like that type of stuff happens all the time. I think it also happened in Tropic Thunder,
Yeah.
which is another good one. But the running out of money thing, like we talked about Robert Rodriguez's El Mariachi not too long ago. And one of the things that he did was, in order to get the locations to shoot some part of the movie in, he would cast people who actually own the locations, put them in the movie. And so like there's a scene in this film where they're doing like the manger scene where Jesus is born. And a police officer shows up and he's like, "Do you have a permit to shoot here?" And the producer's like, "Let me talk to you for a second. Have you ever thought about acting?"
And then they put him in the full garb. He's got like a fake beard on.
He becomes one of the wise men.
Yeah.
And it just automatically cuts to like him saying his line over baby Jesus. And that's the type of thing like that legit happens, where if you have an issue with, you know, something, you just say like, "Hey, would you like to be in the movie?" And the person would be like, "Oh, okay." But I mean, like I had a situation.
Yeah.
I had a situation where, you know, I was making my movie with Jeremy Renner, and we had rented out this restaurant to basically, you know, shoot a scene in with him. And the restaurant owner was like, you know, because we were very low budget. So I was like, "I can only afford to pay you this, but if we agree to order the crew lunch, you know, so that you can cater the lunch while we're shooting that day, would you accept this amount of money in order to shoot there?" And the owner of the restaurant was like, "Yeah, sure. Okay." So we get there on set, and the first thing we do is get lunch. And so everyone eats lunch, and then like we start setting up to shoot. And the owner, you know, we'd already paid him and we'd already eaten lunch. He's like, "Okay, you gotta leave now." And I was like, "Wait, what?" And he was like, "Yeah, you're done shooting." I'm like, "No, we're not." And he's like, "Well, I have my money and I'm going to call the cops if you don't get off my property."
What?
Yeah. And so like, I turned to Jeremy, I'm like, "Can you shoot this scene in 15 minutes? And he's like, "Yeah."
Oh my God.
And so like I had my cinematographer go handheld. And we went into the bathroom where we were shooting the scene. We got it in 15 minutes and then we started packing up. And I told everyone never to shoot at that restaurant ever again. And I don't even think it's in business anymore.
You killed the restaurant?
I didn't
God,
kill.
I'm turned on right now.
Yeah, that's a flex, isn't it?
I didn't kill it, but I just outlasted.
Weird flex, but it worked, baby.
This was also Chris Kattan's first movie. Like Chris Kattan shows up at the end as like one of the guys who saw the movie in the theater, and he comes out and like, "This is the worst thing I've ever seen." And then later on, he's protesting it. So like there's just so much about this movie that I love, and it's just hilarious because, I mean, like I can understand why you guys are kind of lukewarm on it, because it really is for like kind of insiders, like people who've gone through the making of a film. But I want to ask you guys, did you learn anything from this movie, Alex?
I don't know if I learned something. I knew this kind of mentality existed in Hollywood, but like I said, I thought this was a caricature of what happens. I thought they amped it up to 11 for comedic purposes and everything was just kind of like over the top. But then when Kadish said like, "No, this is like super accurate," and I was like, "Oh my God, that's awful." Like, I don't ever want to work in Hollywood. I don't ever want to deal with that. I've always thought like, oh, it'd be cool to make a low budget, you know, movie. Like, I think it would be cool. I've always fantasized about doing it, but then watching this, I'm like, maybe not. I don't think that kind of lifestyle is for me. It'd be, I'd be a freaking jerk to everybody, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah. What about you, Vader? Did you learn anything?
I just learned that it's a real pain in the ass to make movies. That's what I learned.
It makes me
and I learned that you like torturing us.
Well, you should have known that by now.
Yeah. It makes me wonder, like, you see these documentaries about like the Marvel movies or like the behind the scenes stuff from Star Wars that's on like Disney Plus, and everybody's like kumbaya. And they're talking about how wonderful it is to work on this production and how lucky they are to work on Star Wars. And I'm like, are you guys full of shit?
The logistics they must have to have.
Oh my God, dude.
For these big budget.
Like once you get into like the $100 million range, a lot of problems disappear.
Yeah.
But even like on the behind the scenes stuff with Star Wars and things like that, like, you have all the people in George Lucas's circle, like it. And when I don't know if you've ever watched the documentary for the making of the Phantom Menace.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Just yes men everywhere.
Yes men. But like, you see him go to all the different departments, And, he's in the storyboard department. He's like coloring in all the stuff that's supposed to be CG, and then he messes up. And you can just see the guys in the background like,
Yes.
But the best was like when he was in the editing room and the editor's just like, yeah, there used to be a time where, you had to get the actual shot you wanted, but now we can just use computers to make whatever the F we want. And he's like, kind of makes my job boring.
Yeah. One of my favorite scenes from that documentary is when the editor was looking at the final cut of Phantom Menace, and he was like, this is like in the span of 30 seconds, you went from like heartbroken to action movie to celebration to sad again. And George Lucas just looks at me like, I may have gone too far in a few places. I'm like,
I made a terrible mistake.
I'm like, that is my favorite all-time George Lucas moment. And he just admits that he's screwed up and everybody knows it. But I think this movie was a lot of fun, and I think I kind of wish I would have watched it with him, because I think I would have had more fun watching him enjoy it. Because I was watching it by myself, and I was like, okay, it's kind of funny, but like listening to him, and I can tell the joy that's coming from him. Yeah. He loves this friggin' movie.
I do. This was, like I said, this movie was a big part of my film school experience, and back then when I was just making movies at college, I had a microcosm of what went into this. But then once I actually moved to Hollywood and start working in the industry, like this took on like a whole nother level of relevance to me. Jude, did you learn anything from this?
I don't know. I mean, I live with you. I've heard so many of your Hollywood stories. I don't know that I necessarily learned anything, but I watched you watch this and get so much out of it. And it was like I was watching you relive your back in Hollywood days. So I don't know that I necessarily learned about making movies, but I think I learned a little bit more about you.
That's terrible.
No, that's no, I like that.
That's good.
I did learn a little bit more about Kadish watching this movie, and I'm like, oh, that's what he's.
I don't want anyone to learn anything about me.
That's what he was after.
This is Kadish week.
So, for sure.
He
Yeah.
was like, I need some attention.
It's like he got an extra birthday week this week.
It's all good. All right. What are we talking about next?
Well, we're gonna do final thoughts.
Oh, okay. Final
we
thoughts.
just did.
I thought we did too. But okay, final thoughts. Fun. Would have been more fun if I was Kadish. But I don't have any real hate for this movie. I think it's clever in its own way, and it's a very niche movie.
What would you give it?
On an entertainment scale, from just like a consumer side of things, probably like a maybe 2.5, 3. But if I was Kadish and I had lived in this world and like just understanding where he's coming from, probably like a 4, maybe 4.5. I can understand why it's really clever. Vader, what about you? What would you give this movie?
You're such a weak bitch.
What?
Wow.
I'm taking it from both sides. What the fuck?
Every time you're like, well,
I'm trying to get a.
I just want to be Jan Brady in the middle.
Oh my
He really
God.
is.
He really is.
He did it again.
He really is.
He did it again. It's funny.
This movie sucks, guys.
So
I didn't like anybody. I didn't want to root for any of these people.
You know,
that's my shtick.
You are never PC until somebody asks you what you think about something that Kadish already has an opinion on. And then you're like, well.
Quit chewing your eyes. It's bad for your teeth. Quit staring at me now.
What? Okay, we don't all have to jump on him. I was jumping on him. Now you guys leave him alone.
He's crying.
The fuck do you care? You don't edit.
Vader, what are your final thoughts?
We're just.
I'm sorry.
Wow.
Sorry.
Some hatefulness going on today.
I'll go make sandwiches.
I was thinking more like I don't know, man. I'm done now.
It's just stomped on you.
Yeah,
huh?
I know. Wow. I feel kind of bad.
God, you guys called me milk toast. Well, how do you think I feel?
I know. Jeez. Women.
It's all going according to my plan.
What did I think about this movie? It's all right.
That's
2.5. 2.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. I think I like it more after kind of letting it percolate for a few days after I watched it, because when I watched it, I was like, I was just kind of, okay, I'll watch this because Kadish, well, he's making us watch it. But it was, I don't even know what to say. It was fine. It was better after sitting on it for a little while and thinking about it, and it It was all right. I can't move on.
Yeah, okay.
Stop. Just I can't ramble anymore.
Jude.
I think Vader captured it perfectly. Like while you're watching it, it's not that great, but then after the fact, it's pretty smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good. That's good.
We did it.
I'm not touching it right now. You annoyed me.
Well, like I said, I love this movie. I recommend it to anyone who is, interested in filmmaking and interested in, learning how to make movies and what it's actually like to work in a Hollywood picture, even though it's not a documentary, like an actual documentary. It's pretty close to real life. So like, if you're a filmmaking student or you're someone who's interested in making movies, this is a great film to check out. I give it, 4 Coke cans out of 5. So it's definitely worth checking out of 6. Yeah. So,
yeah, you do have to go on a scale of 6 if you're you're going by 6-pack.
5 Coke cans out of 6. So that's my final rating on it.
Okay. All right, guys. Thanks for. Well, I don't know what I'm doing. All right, guys, that's it for And God Spoke. And tune in later on in the podcast. We're actually going to have an interview with the director of the movie. And we're stoked that he actually agreed to do this. This is pretty cool. So Kadish is going to talk to him about this movie, about the making of it. So stay tuned, and that'll be in part of this podcast as well.
Yeah, Kadish has to take point on that because none of us know what to
no,
ask
I'm
him.
like, I don't know what to say to the guy. Good job.
Yeah.
I thought your film was really mediocre.
I gave it 2.5 burning bushes out of 5.
Like Kadish is definitely going to be leading the way on that. So look for that later on in the podcast. Before we move on to the next topic, a quick word from our sponsor. Welcome back, everybody. All right, the next movie on our list today is Living in Oblivion, starring Steve Buscemi and a bunch of really famous people that weren't famous back in the day. And this is probably my favorite out of the 3 this week. So, Jude, take it away. What is this movie all about? Kind of the same thing as the last movie, but that's okay.
1995, Living in Oblivion, rated R with a runtime of 1 hour and 30 minutes. Had a budget of $500,000. Alex, what do you think it brought in?
$1 million.
Vader?
$12,000.
$1.1 million. Good job, Alex.
Pinky on the mouth.
So this is Steve Buscemi is directing a love story. On set, everything goes wrong. Several people are having anxiety dreams about the movie. The director's mom escapes from her home that they've put her in, and then she ends up saving the movie, and it appears that everything is happily ever after. But we don't get to see them finish the film in this one.
Yeah. I really enjoyed this movie. I didn't expect to. Like, I was watching it. I'm like, oh, God, this is going to be like a low budget student film. It's got a bunch of like people who weren't famous yet in it. I didn't expect to like it, but I kind of dove into this one. This one felt more like they were telling a story as opposed to the mockumentary that was And God Spoke. This one was like, this is an actual movie with characters that you can root for or root against, and you can kind of get attached to them. So I appreciated that part of it. I immediately was like, I felt the tension that they wanted to show you, like how nerve-wracking it is to make a movie. I felt like they nailed it because in the first like 20 minutes or so, when it's technically a dream sequence, but it's meant to be like a real shooting a scene.
The first part of this movie, and I'm like going, oh, goody, they're playing with black and white and color.
I like that though.
How trendy.
No, I like that because the real life, quote unquote, real life was black and white. And then every time they said action, it turned to color. Yeah, it's cool. And then later on, when it's revealed that was a dream sequence, they flip it. So now real life is in color and the movie's in black and white. I thought that was clever. That was cool. I like that part.
Okay.
But
clever.
Very clever. But I liked that they showed you just how aggravating it can be to shoot a scene. Like one thing goes wrong, then the next thing goes wrong, and then we had to cut scene. And then you see these little markers, consumers, we see behind the scenes stuff where they go, take 45. Like, Jesus Christ, they did that 45 times. Like, that's what this movie kind of shows you what it's like. And I like that because I felt tense for them. I was able to connect with the characters. I felt like I was the camera guy.
It's like, why does it take 76 scenes or cuts to film a 12-second scene?
Exactly.
Yeah. So basically, Tom DeSillo, the guy who wrote and directed this movie, the idea for this movie came to him when a friend of his came up and he was like, Tom, you made a movie, you made Johnny Suede, like you're so lucky you get to work with actors and stuff like that. And he had such a terrible experience getting that movie made and getting his next movie made that he was like, man, shut the F up. You don't know anything about making movies. He's like, you know, making a movie is one of the most tedious, boring, painful experiences. And that's just when something goes right. and he talks about how like an actress could be in the middle of the most emotional scene and suddenly the microphone comes in the shot and like, you can't use that shot. And as he was ranting about like how terrible making movies is, like, he was like, I should make a movie about this.
Yeah. I can totally see it. It's funny. There's a lot of funny moments. And another thing that really, I really enjoyed about this was how they were able to get the actors to act poorly in some scenes and then purposely act really good in other scenes. I don't know about you guys, but when I see somebody do that, like an actor's like, okay, in this scene, you have to act like you're trying to act, but you're really bad at it.
Like if the mark of a good actor is someone who can act badly on cue.
Yeah.
I think it was Paul Thomas Anderson who said, like, if you ever want to really challenge an actor, challenge them to act badly. Yeah. You know, and not have them actually be a bad actor.
Yeah. This scene or this movie has a ton of those scenes where like the main actress has to like act like
Dad hit me first.
Yeah.
It didn't hurt much, but I started crying anyway, hoping you would leave me alone.
Did you like
take 45?
Did you memorize that whole sequence?
I guess.
Well, they played it like 18 times.
Yeah, they did. I think that was the point though, but that's really good, Jude.
Oh.
You remember?
Stop.
No, that was cool. Like I like those aspects of it. It was a fun movie. I was able to like Wolf. I think is probably my favorite character. In the whole
Okay, my favorite
mine
thing
too.
in this movie is Wolf's eye patch.
Yes.
Why don't you tell people who Wolf is
Wolf,
and what he's about?
Wolf is the cameraman. He's the cinematographer. Right. Yeah. So he's the guy who's in charge of making the scene look right. And
he's dressed like a member of the YMCA.
Yes, he's got a black leather vest with like a rope on his arm and his stupid little beret. And I love it when Steve Buscemi in his dream finally goes off on him. He's like, "You and your stupid freaking pretentious beret." I was laughing pretty good at that one. But Wolf is my favorite character because he's got all this behind the scenes shit going on. But then when he has to do his job, he's sitting there and he's like super serious about getting the shot right.
But he gets something in his eye, and so like he has to wear an eye patch.
Oh, his girlfriend walked past him, and he was like, "Oh, my eye!" And now he has to wear an eye patch for the rest of the movie.
And that's stupid.
And then the lead actor like steals it from him because he thinks it's a cool look.
Yeah.
And the director's like, he's got to get him to get this eye patch off. So he tells him he looks kind of gay in it. And he's like, you know what? Thanks, man. You're right. I won't wear it for the scene.
After looking at Wolf, he's like, oh, yeah, that does look kind of gay.
Now.
And like all of the behind the scenes, like coddling of the different actors, I really enjoyed. Like when the actress, the Catherine Keener, is that her name? Mm-hmm. She's like listening in because the microphone is right there. And like other people are talking about her and how she was just kind of okay in this movie before, which is like the best thing she's ever been in before. And like her self-esteem just starts plummeting throughout the production of this movie.
Yeah.
And then like she sleeps with one of the actors, the main guy, and he's a douchebag. And she's like, you know, I'd appreciate it if you wouldn't mention this. And then he immediately like tells the director and like slut shames her. And she's like listening to the whole thing.
Yeah. Her revenge was pretty good too. Yeah. She's like, why don't we ad lib this scene? And then she just goes off on the dude. And because the camera's rolling and he's like trying to still be in character, she just railroads the dude the entire time.
Didn't that turn out to be one of the fever dreams though? The anxiety dreams?
Before we get to the specifics of this movie. So basically this started off as an idea for like a short film, and it was going to be meant to be a showcase for Catherine Keener because her relationship with Steve Buscemi in the movie actually kind of mirrors the relationship with the real director and her. So he wanted to make this movie with her, and they shot like the first segment of this film, the black and white with Steve Buscemi and her talking to the mother. And when they finished shooting it, they were like, this is too long to be a short film and it's too short to be a feature. So we need to expand this. But he didn't have any money and he didn't want to go out begging for money. And so all the people that he worked with were like, okay, we'll work for free and we'll even give you money to make this movie. And so everyone who invested in the movie got a part in the film. So basically the sound guy and the nameless script girl were like the two main producers. They put in the most money. And I think Steve Buscemi put in some money and stuff like that. But what's really interesting about this film is that, one of the big things about independent cinema back when they had, before digital video, was that it was cheaper to get black and white film than it was to get color film. And so a lot of indie films would save money by shooting in black and white, and it was supposed to be artistic. You know? And one of the funny things about this is they kind of play off of that, where the movie starts off in black and white.
Well, that explains Clerks.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Exactly.
Yes, it does.
And that's the reason why Kevin Smith shot it in black and white. So this movie starts off in black and white, and then like when you see the actual film that's being shot, it's in color. And then in the second sequence, which is a different like anxiety dream from a different character in the movie, because the first segment is
Steve Buscemi's dream.
Yeah. It's Steve Buscemi's anxiety dream. And then the second is Catherine Keener's anxiety dream. And the real world is in color in that. And then the film is being shot in black and white. And then the final segment, which is actually in the real world, it's nobody's dream, it's just reality. Everything is in color, so the film and the real world. And it was kind of a clever play on that kind of indie thing. But the kind of more intimate like nature of this film is really what independent films and even student films are like, where you just have a small crew, you have maybe like one set, you have a small number of actors, one camera, and you're just sitting there trying to make this movie.
Got a bunch of people making noise on the street outside.
Yeah, you know,
dogs
what it's like.
barking.
Dogs
Dogs
barking.
barking.
Yeah, the gardeners show up. like
Leaf blowers.
I get it.
I worked on one independent film where, you know, I was volunteering as a PA, which is basically like just an unpaid like grunt. And they had me outside in the middle of winter in the cold, redirecting traffic to make sure cars wouldn't drive by the set so that they, you know, when they were shooting, they could get clean sound. And so I'd be standing out there freezing my butt off like 3 nights straight, just not learning anything about filming. I'm just out there like redirecting traffic. And like the people who would drive home every day that I'd have to redirect, like they eventually started stopping and giving me like hot cocoa and stuff like that.
That's nice.
They were like, dude, it's so cold out. What are you doing? I'm like, I'm making a freaking movie.
I've done that. I've done that to the sign spinner, dude, down by my house.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
It's 112 degrees outside. Do you need a cold bottle of water?
Yeah, for sure.
But, you know, it's kind of funny. There's in the middle section of this movie, we get an actor, and that actor's name is Chad Palomino, and he's played by James LaGrosse. And he's the guy who, I imagine this is what making a movie with Nicolas Cage is like. You know, where
Yeah, 100%.
Because we've talked about how Nicolas Cage, like he comes up with these ideas and he wants to like put them in the movie, and you can just see like the conflict between like a director, because, you know, having directed movies, I've dealt with stuff like this before, where you have a creative actor who has his own ideas, because acting, you know, like all they care about is their characters, is the actors. Like, I want more lines, or I want to do this, or I want to experience this. But, you know, when you have lots of actors doing all that stuff, as a director, you have to figure out, okay, how do I manage this person? How do I, you know, take their good ideas and incorporate them? How do I reject their bad ideas without pissing them off and, you know, getting them out of their headspace? So being a director is really about kind of being a communicator and a people person. And this middle part where basically Chad Palomino just keeps throwing out these crazy ideas and ruining the scene with them, it's very accurate, because you always have actors who deal with stuff like that.
I can imagine that's super frustrating.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, the
It's
scene where
dude,
he's
you're
like,
being paid to act. Shut the fuck up and do your job. You know,
the scene where he's trying to like, I think I should do the scene laying down, and the actress is like, but you're gonna see the back of our heads, and the director's just like, just let him do it, just let him do it. And I'm like, I wanted to pull my hair out for the people in the movie. That's why I like this movie more, is because I was like, I felt like I was there. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, but that actor, every time he wanted to change things up, like he would miss his cues, and so like the shot, he wouldn't even be in the shot because you know, he'd be going off doing his own thing. And the cinematographer's like, we didn't block for this.
Yeah.
And so like they'd have to keep reshooting it. And, you know, I think the best example of what it's like to be a director is that scene with the eye patch, where basically Chad Palomino thinks that the eye patch is cool and he wants his character to wear the eye patch, even though like it doesn't fit. And so like he steals the eye patch from the cinematographer, puts it on, and just kind of surprises it. Like he's just, the scene's about ready to shoot, and he just turns around, he's got the eye patch on.
And the cinematographer is like, that's unsanitary.
Yeah, that's my eye patch. You know, we can't share eye patches. But so like, you know, he turns around, he's got the eye patch on, and Steve Buscemi takes him aside And he uses this psychological trick where he knows, like, Chad Palomino, he's a leading man. He wants to be like, you know, the
Macho.
Yeah, the macho guy. And so he's like, I didn't want to say this in front of the crew, but the eye patch makes you look kind of gay. And like, that's the type of thing that like a director needs to do in order to, you know, kind of navigate these difficult actors.
Manipulate people's egos to get what they want. It's so messed up, dude.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's 90% of directing.
Yeah, that's terrible.
And it's sad because like actors, they put themselves out there so much, like they're very vulnerable. It's a very vulnerable profession because like if an actor doesn't trust their director, they just go off the rails. And so a director's job is basically to make the actors look as good as possible. And good directors can do that. But you know, you always have examples of actors who have tested directors to see if they can trust them. Like Gene Hackman was famous for this. Like he would basically come on set and he would kind of purposefully do something that he knew was bad for the movie. And he'd see how the director reacted. And if the director called him on it and said like, no, do it this way, he'd be like, okay. And then he'd do what he said. But if the director was a pushover, Hackman would just take over the movie. He wouldn't listen to the guy. He'd just do his own thing because he was trying to protect himself.
Didn't Mel Gibson do the same thing to the brothers that directed Fat Man? Didn't they tell us that?
No, he wasn't difficult to work with them. But Gibson is a director in his own right. So like he understands the process.
I think what you're thinking about is he came up with the scene where he was like, shouldn't I be laughing at this moment? Like when he was telling the dwarfs that they were going to get fired or whatever. Remember that moment when and they were like, they were like, that's a freaking great idea. And then it ended up in the movie. I think that's might be what you're talking about.
I think he was supposed to laugh, but then like he wanted to cry.
Oh yeah, that's what it was.
That's what it was. But like,
that's not what I was thinking of.
Okay, sorry. I was trying to help you out, Jude. I don't know.
But
doesn't matter.
The Chad Palomino character. So the director of this movie, Tom DeCillo, his first movie was Johnny Suede, and that was the first starring role for Brad Pitt. And so for the longest time, people thought that the Chad Palomino character was based off of Brad Pitt and DeCillo's experience working with him on Johnny Suede. However, that's not actually the case. Brad Pitt was supposed to play that character in this movie, but he was shooting Legends of the Fall at the time. And so like his schedule didn't allow him to leave to come and do this film. And so they cast James LeGros, and James LeGros went and based the character off of some actors that he had worked with in the past. And he's always refused to name the people that he based.
Smart guy.
Yeah. But I went through his work around this time. And I narrowed it down to 3 suspects.
I love this.
All right, let's play detective. Who is it?
All right. So the first is Bill Pullman.
Okay.
All right.
The second is Matt Dillon.
I don't know who Matt Dillon is.
Okay.
You don't know who Matt Dillon is?
I probably do, but
Something about Mary.
Because he's 12.
Anyway, third.
Eric Stoltz.
All right.
Eric Stoltz.
I can see that.
You did just say that Brad Pitt was supposed to be in this originally, right?
Yeah.
That would have
blown this movie.
That would have blown this movie up.
Yeah.
It would have been like
probably
different stratosphere, man. That would have been
for sure. I mean,
crazy.
he wasn't famous when this movie was made.
Well,
but
he had
later
already done
on.
Interview with a Vampire, I think.
But
Really?
I think so.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it would have changed it from $1 million to probably 10.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Because I think
at least
he
in
did,
home video.
I think he
Yeah.
did Interview and then he did Legends.
Oh, okay. Cool. Man, that would have been crazy if he was in that.
Memory serves.
There's a moment I wanted to talk to you guys about before we get to Peter Dinklage's character, which is freaking hilarious. But the apple.
So
Anyway, but we're not there yet. Not there yet. Wait. So it's we'll talk about the handheld thing that me and Kadish have been referencing. I was watching this movie and I texted Kadish and I'm like, this is me and you. He's Wolf and I'm Steve Buscemi going, I want to shoot this scene like this. And the whole time the cinematographer Wolf is just going, I think we should do it handheld, man. And he's like, I want it on the dolly. We're not doing it handheld. That's not what's happening. We're going to do this way. And the whole time, every time what do you think, Wolf? I think we should do it handheld. Like, God damn it, man. No. And then at the end, finally, they have no choice but to do it handheld. And it comes out beautifully. And Steve Buscemi's like, that was great, man. He's like, I told you we should have done a handheld. That moment, I was like looking at Kadish and I'm like, oh my God, dude, God damn it, that's us. That's so us. Like we always argue about this stupid little artsy fartsy nonsense that really doesn't matter all that much, but I have a vision and he has this other vision, and then we end up colliding, and it's like every freaking time. I really appreciated that scene.
That's the creative process in general, especially like when you're working on a project that involves multiple people. And when you have, you know, people who are professionals at what they do and are the heads of your departments, like cinematography, set design, you know, wardrobe, things like that, you have to learn to trust them. And sometimes they make suggestions that you don't agree with, but you always have to entertain them. And that's part of what being a director is like you're the head logistics guy. You're the general on the battlefield. And sometimes people bring you ideas that aren't right, but sometimes people bring you ideas that do. And the key is really like being able to communicate what you want from people so that they can give you that, but also at the same time being open to, you know, what it is that they can bring to the picture. Because the more talented people that you work with, the better your movie comes out as. Like when I made my movie with Jeremy Renner, nobody knew who Jeremy Renner was at the time.
Such a name drop.
He's been doing that the whole time.
Hey, Kadish.
I don't know if you remember, but
do you know Jeremy Renner?
I work with Jeremy Renner.
You know Hawkeye?
Well, okay, so in my defense, at the time, the only thing he'd done was beer commercials. But like he came in, he auditioned, and he nailed it. And I was like, this is the guy for my movie. And so when we were working on set, because he was so good, he just made my job so much easier because I didn't have to give him a lot of direction. That freed me up to focus on other stuff.
This one time, I was at the Bellagio, and Harrison Ford was there at the same time.
No shit.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Nice. Did you see him?
My wife did.
So the answer is no. You're such a douche.
She's like, hey, you should have went and met Harrison Ford. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
I once saw Mike Tyson at the Sprint store when I was getting a new cell phone. I didn't walk up to him because I didn't want to be that guy.
I'm sorry, Matt. I just took a shot and I felt like being a dick. So.
No, but the point I'm trying to make is that when you're working with talented people, you need to be open to, you know, what they bring to the table. And this movie really kind of showcases that. Like Catherine Keener's character, very talented, and you can see like there are moments where like she becomes inspired and she delivers this amazing performance, but she does it
off camera.
Yeah, she does it when the camera's not rolling in a rehearsal, and then like when it comes time to actually shoot it, you know, like she hears something that you know knocks her self-confidence down, and she's terrible in the actual shot, and so like that's the type of thing.
Question.
Yeah.
Did I raise my hand? I did.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just habit.
Habit?
So does this thing happen where the actors are going over the lines and stuff, and the director sees it, and they're like, roll camera, they're doing really good? So
sometimes.
Does that happen?
Sometimes that happens. It depends on the setup.
Because that seems like a trope.
If they do it handheld.
Yeah.
You gotta do it handheld if you do that.
And there's probably a goddamn boomstick in the shot.
But to Alex's point, you know, whenever you're in a creative like endeavor with someone, there's always going to be, you know, the butting of heads, because when two conflicting visions kind of come down to it, you know, you got to work that out. And it's in situations where you can't work it out, where things start going south and movies like fall apart, or whatever creative endeavor it is. But, you know, Alex is very correct, where, you know, he uses the metaphor of I'm the cinematographer, he's the director. I'd argue it's reversed. But, you know, eventually, you know, if you can work things out and these happy accidents make the stuff better, it's magical. That's the magic of movie making. But for the most part, movie making is a very frustrating and difficult process. So let's talk about Peter Dinklage.
Yes, please. Because
this is his very first movie. Like this was the first movie that he ever appeared in as an actor. I think he had done some theater before this.
It's funny because I was I'm rewatching Game of Thrones. Don't tell anybody. I'm rewatching Game of Thrones, and I had just watched the scene, his courthouse scene when he was going up against his dad.
Awesome?
Dude, that scene is amazing.
It's amazing.
His acting is just above and beyond anything I've ever seen. It's so good. And I see him in this movie like shortly after, and I'm like, oh, he really is that good. Like, he's supposed to play this overly obnoxious, like, douchebag who's just fed up with everybody, and he nails it. It's so funny. He's like, okay, I want you to walk around and hold the apple, and then at the end laugh. And he just doesn't laugh. And he's like, why didn't you laugh? And he's like, What are you talking about? What kind of laugh do you want? Like, you didn't tell me what you wanted me to do.
At first, he's like, I did laugh. He obviously didn't. but you do have those situations where on set, like an actor is being difficult, and you have to like deal with it. And basically, the setup for this is that there's a dream sequence where Catherine Keener is in this like wedding dress, and a dwarf has to come out of the smoke and walk around with an apple.
Why does it have to be a dwarf?
Why is it? We're gonna get to that.
That freaking monologue was amazing.
So Jude, you want to do the Catherine Keener?
Wait, Vader, hold your apple in my shot. Come on, yeah. I'm so hungry.
Yeah, so the direction is like she's reaching for the apple, but she can't quite get it, and the dwarf's supposed to circle around her with the apple, and then at the end just kind of like
maniacal,
and so like the character Peter Dinklage, his name's Tito, but Catherine Keener keeps calling him Toto by accident.
And he gets so pissed off about it, dude.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
And so he becomes very like kind of like insulted that like they're only doing this because he's a dwarf.
Yeah.
And finally he gets so fed up that at the end he has the most epic meltdown ever captured on screen about dwarves.
He's like, what? You wanted to make this scene strange, so you just had to put a dwarf in it. Is that it?
He's like, have any of you ever had a dream about a dwarf?
No, the answer's no.
Yeah.
I don't even have dreams about dwarves.
Yeah.
I was like, he makes a pretty good point.
That's a very valid point.
Yeah, he's like, why does my character have to be a dwarf? And Steve Buscemi is like, well, it doesn't. He's like, well, then why is he? Is this the only way you can make this a dream? Put a dwarf in it? Like, have you ever had a dream with a dwarf in it? Do you know anyone who's had a dream with a dwarf in it? No, you don't. I don't even have dreams of dwarves in them. He's a dwarf.
I about killed my friends at work.
Why?
Last week, because we had a conversation about opening a restaurant.
Oh yeah,
which I can't talk about a whole lot because my boss will get mad for throwing his idea out there.
Okay,
but my idea was to have it entirely staffed by dwarves, just because that would be the gimmick. And I would be in charge, and I would be the king of the dwarves. And
like Gimli.
And they go, well. Anyway,
bro, you can't say this shit. What the hell?
I don't know. It was
you
just
can't say you're going to be the king of the dwarves.
I'm just the big dwarf. I can just say I'm the big dwarf. They're the normal sized dwarves.
You're like 6 feet tall.
Thanks for telling us about this, Vader.
Anyway, just I think dwarves are funny.
Oh my God, dude.
Yeah, but I love Peter Dinklage. I love Peter Dinklage where he's like, you want to make something strange? Put a dwarf in it. Everyone go, whoa, 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 whoa. There's a dwarf here. There must be a dream.
It was a very valid point, and I think Steve Buscemi even said that too. And he's like, he's absolutely right. It was one of those moments. Yeah.
But if you're a dwarf, you should never be unemployed.
I'm all for it, man.
You always should have an acting gig somewhere, right?
Yeah.
On stage and man.
One time I saw a dwarf do stand up, and he was talking about how every time dwarves have sex, rainbows appear.
Yeah, what is that guy's name? The dwarf comedian. He's great.
Yeah, he's super funny.
I can't think of his name.
He's just the dwarf comedian.
I know.
God damn it.
I remember him as.
There's only one, and he's really funny.
He is super funny. He's very talented.
And you know what his shtick is? He makes fun of dwarves.
Does he? Well, yeah.
The entire show.
It's because he's allowed to do that.
He can do it, and I can't.
I don't know.
Is that how
I don't know what the rules are,
I'm not
man.
a dwarf, so I can't laugh about dwarfs. Can I laugh about fat people?
Just call him Pecs and get it over with.
Man, never been a buffet I didn't like to kill.
I don't know what the rules are,
You got
man.
a futon? You better hide that fucking thing before I come over. I'm going to break it. I'm just going to stare at it. It's going to break. It's because I'm fat.
Is that the joke?
Yeah, it's the joke.
Okay.
I've killed like 3 in my life.
Oh, this is a true
real.
story?
For real. Yeah.
Did you look at it and it broke?
No, I just kind of like
Sat on it.
Sat on it a little
How
bit.
do you do with plastic chairs?
Death. Yeah. But why is that funny? You can't laugh at me because you're not a fat fuck.
I certainly can, sir, because I bought you.
No, you cannot.
I bought you a gift today. So show him your gift.
No.
Show him your gift.
Not right now.
Oh, you're terrible. Anyway, movie.
I'm sorry, man.
We went off on a tangent on that one.
Dwarves are funny. Okay, that's why Peter Dinklage was in this movie.
He was really good in this movie.
He was.
He's a solid actor. I like him in.
He's one of my favorites.
Space Pants was brilliant. What else are we talking about? Are we doing final thoughts? Okay. Final thoughts
That's all
on living.
Yes, we are.
I do want to say real quick, like at the end, so there's this scene where they have to get room tone, which
The 30 seconds, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, in the editing for sound.
Can I stop you just for a second? I'm sorry, I didn't mean. Explain what that is.
Yeah,
I was really confused about that part.
So in the post-production process, when you're editing sound, if you cut, the audio without having a room tone underneath it, you're going to hear the cuts. You're going to hear the difference in tone.
It's going to sound dead.
Yeah. So you need to have a room tone because every room's different. So you just need like pure, room tone in order to make the audio editing sound good. And so like that's one of those things where when you're shooting a movie, you always have to pause at some point for 30 seconds of room tone. And during this time, everyone's sitting there and you get to see what's going on in their head. Like it flashes to what they're thinking about. And, every director always thinks about like how great his movie is going to be and how he's going to get an award and tell everyone who ever rejected him in his life to go F themselves, which is what goes on in Steve Buscemi's head. And, but then like you have like this guy who's basically, he's like one of the, ADs, or he's one of the grunts on set. And, he was the one who was working the smoke machine from like 1965 that like, either didn't put out enough smoke or put out way too much. And he's just sitting there and like his dream is like having a cheeseburger, which is kind of accurate because a lot of these guys who just like are the grunts on set, like they don't have any ambitions to be like rich and famous or anything like that. They're workers. And so like, I found, the ending to this movie to be like very interesting to me because you get to see kind of how everyone ends up, but at the same time, it's just a fantasy. And so like, I don't know, like I like the ending of this movie a lot.
And the lead actress is the waitress in
yeah.
the diner where
She's
he's having his
terrified.
burger. Yeah,
Yeah.
she's like, I'm just going to end up being a waitress after this.
And can I say like Catherine Keener's hairy armpits really took me out of the movie.
Oh, I hate that.
She's this very
misogynist.
She's this very pretty woman. She's got the hairiest armpits in this film. And every time you see them, you're just like, ooh, it's just weird.
How dare you, sir?
Patriarchy.
Do you have hairy armpits, Jude?
I don't, but I'm fine with anyone who wants them. Like, y'all have hairy armpits.
Well, that's because we're dudes.
How do you know that?
I know some things.
I work outside. It's really sweaty.
You shave your armpits.
It prevents smell. It really does.
I know.
Yeah.
Do we have a manscaping sponsorship?
We do. Go to Scarif Podcast, 20% off manscaping.com. That's what I use. That way I don't stink all day long. Okay, so final thoughts on this movie. Wow, I just revealed way too much to the listeners. Vader, final thoughts on Living in Oblivion.
It was fun. I enjoyed this movie. It's 3 out of 5. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to say about it that we haven't said.
3 out of 5.
Peter Dinklage was funny.
Yeah.
That whole scene was good. You got a little artsy fartsy with the black and white and the color and stuff, but that's what this movie's supposed to do.
Yeah,
so it was fine. It's what they went for, and I got it, and it was cool.
Did you get the setup and payoff with the bad milk? That was good. That's good writing right there. The opening scene was talking about the bad milk, and then it paid off like an hour later with the guy getting sick. So I appreciated that. I appreciate this movie. It was definitely a 3.5 star for me. Again, as just like basic consumer, probably not the most fun, but I appreciated it. I had fun with it. The actors were really good, and the jokes hit better than the other movie. Jude, final thoughts?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. The jokes hit better. The cast was great. And I give it 3 out of 5 dream sequences.
Nice. Kadish?
I really enjoy this movie. Like I said, if you're a fan of filmmaking and you want to learn the process of filmmaking and have dreams of becoming a director or something like that, this is a great movie to watch to kind of see, what's in your future. I would definitely give this, at least, 3 out of 5 dream dwarfs. So
Apples.
Holding apples.
Dream apples.
Can we get an apple that just sits like
I
that?
don't have any apples.
You don't have any apples?
No.
Oh my God. All right, guys. Real quick before we talk about our final film, let's take a quick break to listen to some sponsors. Welcome back, everybody. Hey, if you want to support the podcast, go to saltynerdstore.com. You can get a cool shirt like this one or the one Kadish is wearing, Bat Rat Spider Crab. That's a call out to the original retro rewatch. And you can help support the podcast. Any money that we get goes right back into the podcast so we can up our production value and get better equipment and make awesome content for you to listen to or watch on YouTube. Go to YouTube and subscribe. Okay, so last on our list is the Steve Martin and Eddie Murphy movie, Bowfinger. Jude, take it away. What is this movie all about?
1999 Bowfinger, rated PG-13 with a runtime of 1 hour 37 minutes. Had a budget of $55 million. Wow. What do you think it brought in the box?
82.
Vader?
I think this movie bombed. So I'm going to go, what was his budget?
55.
45.
98.6.
Oh.
Alex wins the day.
Finally. I suck at this game too.
So an accountant writes a bomb-ass script and broke-ass Bowfinger wants to make it into a movie. He's got $2,184 and a star that doesn't know he's in it. Meanwhile, as Bowfinger shoots his movie around the unwitting star, who is played by Eddie Murphy gets really freaked out about all the crazy white people that keep coming up to him and talking crazy white people language, and Heather Graham F's everyone.
I hated this movie.
Oh, you did?
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Okay, so there's two things, like during this era, the 90s era. Really didn't like Eddie Murphy in this time period when he's acting.
Hercules.
I thought he was funny in this movie.
It's
I thought the brother that he played was really funny.
that was funnier than his actual like big name actor character. But I just this version of Eddie that he played around with in the 90s and 2000s, like I can't attach myself to it. I find him grating and annoying. Everything he does is over the top. Everything he does is just like, wow, it's nonsense. I can't stand it. And then Steve Martin, I understand, is a super classic comedic actor. A lot of his movies are really good, Planes, Trains, Automobiles. But again, during this little stint, I can't stand him. I don't like his.
I enjoyed this movie.
Really?
Way more than I thought I was going to.
Oh God, I couldn't.
I was when he said Bowfinger last week. He said we're going to watch Bowfinger. I'm like, Bowfinger. I know I should know what this movie is, but I don't know what this movie is. And then I didn't even look it up until I turned to push play. And I'm like, oh, it's Steve Martin and Eddie Murphy. Okay, I remember hearing about this. I never watched it before, so this was my first
time. Yeah, first time for me too.
And I mean, neither one of these guys were like at that point in their careers when this came out that I felt like I needed to go to the theater and immediately watch this, like most Eddie Murphy movies, you know. But I'm glad we watched it. I had a good time with this movie. It was fun.
Jude, what did you think about this movie?
I liked it. It was my favorite of the week. And I just thought it was funny. And I felt like each movie that we watched, because we watched them in order that we talked about them today. So we started with And God Spoke, and then we watched Living in Oblivion, and then we finished with this. And I was like, each movie got funnier
As it went along?
through the week. Yeah. I liked it. I thought Heather Graham was really funny. And I thought, excuse me, when Eddie Murphy was playing his own brother, I thought he was really funny. I agree with you that like his action star character that he was playing wasn't that funny, but I don't think he was supposed to be.
The scene where Eddie's playing his brother and he's like running across the freeway. And
oh yeah,
it's so funny the way, you know, Eddie's a master at playing characters anyway.
Yeah.
So which is I'm really looking forward to
Coming to America
too. Yeah, because he's redoing all that again. But it was just funny, you know, with the braces and the goofy smile, and it's just completely different character. And I laughed, man. It was good. You know, when she got her boobs out in front of him, and he's all.
That's my favorite part.
You're gonna be a star.
When he turns to the camera and he's like, awesome.
You know, it's like I can relate to that guy.
Is that you?
That was me when I was like 13.
Yeah.
Like, boobs. Yeah,
when you were watching Boob Stalker and all those great barbarian movies.
Yeah.
Catch that t-shirt and saltynerdstore.com. Kadish, what are your thoughts?
I'm sorry. I just, and you know, and Steve Martin with his stereotypes, you know, and his reversal, or his clip-on ponytail and stuff. Yeah, that was just funny. Yeah.
Right on. Kadish, what are your thoughts on Bowfinger?
So I chose this movie specifically because, you know, even though it's a comedy, the portrayal of the people in this movie is quite accurate to how actual people in Hollywood act. And so like, you know, Steve Martin's character, he's a producer, and he's just this kind of like habitual liar. But like he has a true passion for making movies, and he will deceive and steal and cheat, whatever it takes to make a movie. And there are so many guys like this in Hollywood. Like, it's not even a caricature of a producer. It's like there are actual guys like this in Hollywood. The character that Heather Graham plays, Steve Martin based her off of this actress named Anne Heche, who used to be Ellen's wife or girlfriend or something like that. But, she came from Ohio fresh off the bus, got into acting. Steve Martin actually dated her for a while, so that's how he knew to base the character of Heather Graham off her. And she's basically just an actress who's very ambitious and is not afraid to sleep her way into better and better roles and, a higher and higher status.
Same.
Yeah. Yeah. So like there are lots of actresses out there like that who, like, in order to get a part, they're willing to sleep their way up there. And we've had this whole Me Too thing, but kind of the dirty little secret about the Me Too movement in Hollywood is that a lot of these actresses are all for it because it's helped their careers.
But canceled.
Okay. Yeah. But then like the minute that they can turn it around, and so like they don't have to do that anymore, that they will. So like everyone in Hollywood's cutthroat,
Yeah, why wouldn't you be like, no, I'm not going to do that anymore?
But you also have like, so for instance, there's a scene where like they need a crew that they can afford, which means like for free. So they go to the border.
That's so good.
God.
That's so funny.
They open up the van door.
Get in the van.
Yeah, they find people crossing the border illegally and get them in a van, and basically that's their crew. and these guys turn in from just like regular kind of like Mexican immigrants and into like by the end, like they're like filmmaking like aficionados.
They're all wearing like 80s garb with their like rolled up sleeve jackets and everything.
With like cell phones, and they're talking about like how they want to shoot like cinema verite and stuff like that. But it's funny because like when I was living in Hollywood, it was not uncommon for film productions to go down to the Home Depot, and there were just a bunch of illegal immigrants outside the Home Depot for day labor, where you could just go and like, I need something in my garden done. And you get an illegal immigrant from Home Depot to come to your house, and you pay them.
You can do that here
today,
right now.
Yeah, you can do that here.
You drive in front of U-Haul, and there's always like 12
the Star Nursery down the street.
Star Nursery.
Every single day. Hardworking people, man.
Yeah, but in Hollywood, you would get these guys and you would just use them as like cheap labor for your movie. So like that's not far-fetched at all. And the character of Eddie Murphy, the big A-list action star who basically sees racism in everything. I think there was a scene where he's like, I went through the script, I counted how many K's were in the script, and then I divided by 3 the number of pages or like something like that. And he's like, you know what it came out to? KKK.
And the producer's sitting there like, what are you talking about?
No, it was his agent.
His agent? Okay.
Yeah. And like there's a great scene that Eddie Murphy actually ad-libbed where he's sitting at a restaurant with his producer and he's talking about, how he wants to get nominated for an Oscar so he can be taken seriously as a serious actor as opposed to an action star. And he's like, white boys get all the Oscars. In fact, did I get a nomination? No. You know why? Because I ain't played none of them slave roles where I get my ass whipped. And that's how you get nominations. The black dude plays a slave role, gets his ass whipped. He gets a nomination. White boy plays an idiot, he gets the Oscar. Find me a script with a retarded slave, then I get an Oscar.
Oh my God. I forgot that was a line in the movie.
But Eddie Murphy, that was just him like riffing. And it's so accurate though.
Oh man. Eddie Murphy, man, he was freaking hardcore back in the day. Like his comedy skits in the 80s, man.
Well, this was kind of like the end of his big run. I kind of feel
1999.
Yeah.
I know he's done a lot of stuff since.
Because he was huge in the 80s.
No, for sure. Yeah.
And then then he started making Disney movies.
Daddy Daycare was funny though.
Yeah,
that was a good movie.
But he's just coming into his resurgence like in the last couple of years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
we did Dolomite. Dolomite was awesome.
Yeah, that was like
the
first.
Really good.
Yeah, that was a great movie.
My Name is Dolomite. That was one of our earliest reviews on the podcast.
Great movie.
But what's funny about this movie is that it's actually based off of an old urban legend in Hollywood, where in the 1920s, actress Mary Pickford went on vacation to Russia. And at the time, Russian cinema like wasn't an industry. Like it was kind of like just starting off, but it wasn't like a big thing. And so this Russian filmmaker found out that she was vacationing, and he got a film crew to hide and follow her around and film her. And then like once she left, he looked at all the footage and figured out how to make a movie based around it. So it was the first Russian movie with a major Hollywood star in the film. And that's kind of like the real story is that she actually went there to kind of help the Russian film industry. So like she was knowingly filmed, but the story of how like it, you know, like she was unknowingly filmed was kind of like the thing that you hear, you know, around town. And so that was the inspiration for, you know, Steve Martin writing this movie.
Yeah, because they couldn't afford to get Eddie Murphy's character Kit, right? Kit was his name.
Yeah.
They couldn't afford to hire him, or he didn't want to do the movie, so they filmed him just doing everyday activities, and they would have actors run up to him and like start saying lines, and that's where this whole shtick with like it was a movie about aliens called Chubby Rain.
Best title ever.
Best title ever, and it was like they would run up to him and start like screaming and yelling about aliens, and he started getting freaked out. And my favorite scene in the movie that I actually thought was really funny was the one in the parking garage where they had the dog in the high heels, clip, clop, clip, clop, clip, clop, and he thinks there's somebody chasing him, and Eddie Murphy just starts freaking out and yelling and like running to his Ferrari, and you just see the dog clip, clop, clip, clop, clip, clop.
But it's actually funny because the character of Eddie Murphy is actually very mentally unstable. So like he belongs to the Scientology esque religion called Mindhead.
That about killed me. All these fools running around with pyramids on their head.
But I mean, like if you know anything about Scientology, that's not far off.
Yeah.
But like you know, he has this weird thing where he actually does believe in aliens, which, you know, if you're a Scientologist, you know, that's the whole thing is the Thetans. But in addition to that, he also has this compulsive urge to expose himself to Laker girls.
It's a nice character development for him.
Yeah, with the plastic bag over.
And so like when basically the impetus for this film is Bowfinger kind of corners a studio executive played by Robert Downey Jr. at a restaurant, and the studio executive kind of you know messes with him a little bit and says like, hey, if you can get Kit Harington for your movie, I'll give you the money to make it. And so, you know, obviously Kit Harington's way out of Bowfinger's league. So he decides to film the movie without Kit knowing he's in the movie. And so, you know, he does like the hidden camera stuff, and he has the actors approach Kit on the street and say their lines, even though like Kit doesn't know that he's in a movie. And every time this happens, it makes him unravel more and more, and to the point where basically he just, by the end of the movie, he's going crazy. And it was pretty funny.
The car chase scene was pretty funny too, where they had the dude like a tinfoil hat running around with a freaking laser blaster in the back. It was good. There's a couple of good moments in this, but I don't know, man. It was just too much for me. This type of humor where it's like over the top. One of the worst scenes that I can't stand is when Steve Martin goes to his crew and they're asking him like, "Did you get the money? Did you get the money?" And he's like, "Well, I met with him and he said," and it just hung for so long, and he's like, "He said yes," and I'm like, I'm over it by that point. Like the joke didn't work for me because they took freaking way too long to hit the punchline.
I thought it was funny.
Whatever. Horse noise.
Do you know who directed this movie?
No, who directed it?
Yoda.
Oh, Frank Oz. Yeah, that's right. It said in the opening scene. Yeah, Frank Oz is the director. That was pretty cool.
Yeah,
that was cool.
One of my favorite moments in the film is when Steve Martin has his little like cache of money, and he's going through it, and he's like, "This is what's gonna, you know, get this movie made." And Jamie Kennedy, I think his name is. Yeah. You know, he's the cinematographer, and he's like, "Don't movies cost millions of dollars?" And
every movie costs $2,000.
Yeah, Steve Martin's like, "That's after gross net deduction profit percentage deferment 10% of the nut. Cash, every movie costs $2,184."
2184, isn't that a famous number? 2184, is that from Star Wars?
No. But it's just you know,
That's
it was
1138.
No, there's another one.
It was all the money he had, and basically like he's not wrong. It's like, you know, you just work with the funds that you have to make a movie. If you don't have any money, that's what you make a movie with. If you have millions of dollars, that's what you make a movie with. So you know, the ingenuity that he displays in this film and making a movie, that's not uncommon to see when people are actually making movies. It's, you know, stuff where like you lie to get things, you steal things off the street, you know, you bullshit people, you know, there's all this stuff that you do to make sure your movie gets made. And, you know, some people, they go deep into debt, you know, putting stuff on credit cards and things of that nature. And it can ruin your life, really. But some people are just so passionate about their vision that they're willing to do that. Like I knew a guy who actually spent $500,000 on his like indie film. He put it all on credit cards and he's still in debt to this day. And like, you know, he can't get a home loan or, you know, anything like that because like
he should have stolen his lead actress's debit card.
something like that.
What was the dollar amount?
The dollar amount was $2,184.
Oh, okay. The number of the detention center that Princess Leia was in was 2,187. Come on, Frank Oz. Man, he had a chance.
But yeah, like if you ever watch this movie, like all the characters in this movie are not caricatures. It's like they're actual people in Hollywood exactly like these people. And the great thing about Heather Graham's character is like how bad of an actress she is. Like every time she's on screen, she's like, she's like moving her body, you know, and that's her acting, you know, and it's just like, it's like every time she's on screen, I laugh because it's so over the top, but bad actresses acting badly.
I don't want to do it.
Do it.
It's just like,
Oh, we're getting the full.
wait. She's like, where have you forgot your briefcase?
Wow.
and like she keeps like upgrading. Like the more she learns, it's like, oh, the writer is the one who gives me more scenes, I'm going to sleep with him.
Yeah.
Oh, the producer is the one who puts me in more scenes, I'm going to sleep with him.
Oh, the
Oh,
cameraman.
Oh, the A-list actor is the one who can get me bigger movies, I'm going to sleep with him. And so like she just keeps sleeping with the right people, and eventually at the end of the movie
She's
like,
on the red carpet, right?
well, eventually at the end of the movie, she's like, I'd like you to meet the most powerful lesbian in Hollywood. And then like,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
implied that like, you know, she's sleeping with her. So
This
like,
would be Ellen, right?
Ellen.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why
Yeah.
I said like Anne Heche was the,
Yeah.
you know, the inspiration for that character. But you know, it's just like the accountant who writes the script, and he's like this Pakistani who has like 12 brothers and sisters that he has to like support. But, you know, he wants to pursue his dream of being a screenwriter. And
He has like 3 jobs in the movie, right? He's an accountant. Steve Martin said something about that. Like, oh, when did you have time to do this? And he's like, in my spare time.
Yeah, but overall, this is a very funny movie. But the humor for me on a different level is just like I've met people like the people in this movie,
Right.
And so
It's a common thread this week.
yeah. So like that to me was why I wanted to include it in this theme.
Right on. Yeah,
So did they get any pushback from the Scientology weirdos on this movie?
Probably not. I mean, like I don't know. Scientology plays it pretty close to the vest, and I don't think anyone involved in this was, you know, in the church. So, but I'm sure that Tom Cruise was not pleased.
This is
Probably not.
This is kind of a running joke in Hollywood, though. This is not the first or the last time that people made fun of Scientology in a movie.
No.
It's kind of just a running gag at this point for like for these like
Well,
mockumentary.
Scientology is not a joke, though. Like,
No, I'm
like,
not the religion. I'm just saying like people teasing about it in movies, especially movies that like take place in Hollywood. Like that happens all the time.
But I mean, like, it's just weird. Like, for instance, I almost went to a Scientologist dentist in Hollywood one time when I lived down there, and I was looking for a dentist.
It's like, nope.
well, I found out that they don't believe in anesthetic.
Oh God.
And so I was like, I'm not going to a dentist with no anesthetic. But like that's the type of thing that's like the church will send them business because it's like, oh, it's a Scientology business. And it's all very almost mafia-like. Like they're very secretive, and like once you're in, you can't get out. And it was weird because like they own so much real estate in Hollywood that you'll be walking down the street and you'll just see this line of people. And you know, they're waiting to get read or whatever those machines are that, you know, read your colors or something like that. But I when I first moved to Hollywood and I was ignorant about Scientology, I'd see
You still sound a little ignorant about Scientology.
I know more about it now, but like I'd walk by these long lines and they were all filled with like very attractive young actresses who were, you know, interested in the church. And so like I'd be, you know, chatting them up and stuff like that. And they're like, oh, you should come in and get read. And I had friends who went in and actually fell for it. And like they were just plagued by Scientologists calling them, showing up at their house constantly, trying to get them to join the church for like months on end. And I'm so glad I never fell for that. But I was always like, oh, the Scientology chicks are hot. But don't
It's
ever
like the hookers for Jesus.
don't ever date a Scientology girl. It's not worth it.
We're gonna get so canceled this
Yeah.
week. We're just,
What is with you guys?
whatever.
This one goes off about dwarves. This one is talking about everything that you shouldn't say about a woman.
Just Scientology.
It's just who we are.
And women sleeping their way to
Yeah,
the top.
Casting couch thing was weird.
Yeah.
But it's a trope in the movie, and we're talking about movies.
It's also something that actually happens. So
sometimes. I don't want to say it can't happen all the time.
oh,
Sometimes.
it doesn't happen all the time, but it's a real thing in Hollywood. It's one of the reasons why, like,
why it's a shtick in this movie.
It's also a category on Pornhub.
That's true.
Oh, Jude's on board with that one.
but you know, it's funny because, you know, the whole casting couch thing, like when I was in Hollywood, it wasn't, the whole Harvey Weinstein thing was an open secret. Like everyone knew about it.
But I don't think that's a secret.
No, that's why I said
I know. Yeah.
secret.
It's like everybody knows that.
But you know, then it comes out, like, you know, the newspapers report on it, and Harvey Weinstein gets thrown in jail and canceled and all this stuff.
Yeah, but he's a piece of shit though.
Yeah, but he was always like that.
I know.
But people just didn't care in Hollywood, and that was kind of like the culture there. And so
I'd rather that they care now.
Right.
But the casting couch is actually still a thing. It's always going to be a thing because there's always going to be horny people who are willing
to take advantage of a situation.
And ambitious people who are willing to put out for it.
Yeah.
Like I've heard stories, I'm not going to go into them, but I've heard stories of young men who aren't gay, who were willing to go gay in order to get their big break. And there are some major actors out there who did that. And, you know, it's too bad really, because, you know, people should get stuff based on their talent.
Hollywood's a really weird place. When you open the curtain and see what happens behind the scenes. It's super weird. I'm surprised.
Hollywood.
Do they have a movie that kind of focuses on the more negative aspects? Like these are all comedies. They're all meant to be seen in a comedic light. But is there a movie out there that kind of like shined a light on the worst parts?
Corey Feldman autobiography.
That poor bastard, man.
I know.
I feel really bad for him. I don't really like any of his movies, but I don't. It's horrible what happened to him.
There's a film called All About Eve. There was also a TV series called Feud that you and I watched about, it was a Ryan Murphy show where it was about these two actresses, Susan Sarandon and what's her name? But they were, you know, big actresses making a movie and they hated each other. And so like, you know, like it kind of showed like the inner workings of
I do remember that now. Yeah.
But yeah, there are lots of, there are films out there that show like the darker side of, you know, this type of thing. But I wanted something a little bit more fun for you guys.
No, totally. I get it. I want to make sure that we're covering our bases. Like we don't approve of the darker side of Hollywood, you know, obviously is a terrible thing. But, you know, if we look at it from a comedic light, like this movie highlights the actress who sleeps her way to the top. It's a trope in this movie that's referencing obviously something that does happen from time to time. So I just want to make sure we're covering our bases. We're not approving of that, but it does happen. All right, so we're
not like, isn't that cool?
Yeah, like, oh, let's do that. No. I mean, if Spotify wants to sponsor $100 million, you know what I'm saying? No, I'm kidding.
I'll touch it,
but I won't suck it.
I'll probably suck it. 100 million?
Oh my god!
I'll suck it. I'll suck it twice. 100 million?
Oh, Jude, you just proved Kate is 100% right.
You're fine with that, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, 100 million.
Where's Antonio Banderas when we need him?
Hey, we get a cut of that too. So.
Oh, we do?
Oh, do you now? Hashtag time's up.
That didn't sound right.
Yeah, what do you want to cut up?
All right, final thoughts on Bowfinger before we get canceled again for like the fourth time this episode. Matt Vader, what are your final thoughts on Bowfinger?
Funny movie. I enjoyed it. I'll give it 3 stars.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's not the best movie in the world. It's not the worst. It was fun. I enjoyed Eddie Murphy. I enjoyed Steve Martin. It was just a fun movie.
Right on. Jude?
Same. Yeah. 3 out of 5.
Cones.
Fresh off the bus. I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I liked it. It was my favorite of the 3 movies we watched for this, and I thought it was funny.
Right on.
And I love the Chubby Rain. And I love that he was charging people to audition.
Oh yeah.
That's a real thing.
Really?
Yeah, like you know, there are unscrupulous producers out there who will charge actors to audition for them, and so like that was based on like real stuff.
Gosh. Kadish, final thoughts?
This is a very funny movie in its own right. It's a good comedy. The performances are, fantastic. It's not like a super belly laugh type movie, but like, it's very humorous, and it also gives like good insight into the Hollywood culture and the making of movies and stuff like that. So I would give it, 3 chubby reins out of 5.
Right on. This is not my type of movie. This is not my type of humor. I didn't really enjoy this movie. Eddie Murphy's over the top stuff kind of gets grating on me a little bit. Steve Martin's good sometimes, but in small doses for me. So this is my least favorite of this week. I'd give it like freaking, I don't know, two stars just for the star power in the movie. All the famous people that are in there, Jamie Kennedy, Steve Martin, they elevate the movie to a certain extent, but for me, it's just not my type of humor. So 2 out of 5 for me. All right, guys, before we head out real quick around the table, where can we find everybody on the socials, starting with the Barbarian Space Viking? Where can we find you?
You can find me at Matt Vader 74 on Twitter and YouTube and Instagram.
Right on. And Juju, where can they find you?
You can find me at I am Jude Juju on Instagram and Twitter, and you can find me at thevoiceofjude.com.
Right on. Thank you very much. And Matthew Kadish, where can they find you at?
You can find me at Matthew Kadish, Kadish on Twitter, and you can also check out my Amazon page at kadishbooks.com.
Right on. And I am the host of the Salty Nerd Podcast. You can catch me on Twitter at salty_nerd. Hang out, talk about movies, and let me know what you think about these movies and how many times we're going to get canceled this week. All right, guys. Thanks for listening, and have a good week.